Today's guest is someone who has lifted me as a CEO and as a human. As my Vistage Chair and coach, her influence has created ripples in my life and countless others. She has the remarkable ability to bring clarity in chaos, courage in uncertainty, and to ask the kind of questions that don't just shift your thinking, they shift your being. I'm endlessly grateful for the ways she supported me, challenged me, and lifted me through some of the most pivotal chapters in my journey. And in true always lifting fashion, she embodies the thread this podcast is all about: wisdom, curiosity, growth, and grace. Welcome, Joni Naugle.
Why, thank you, Karen. That was certainly a very kind introduction.
Well, I mean all of those things. I view you as the CEO whisperer, as well as a valued friend, and just so happy that you came on and were willing to try this out with me.
It's an honor. So let's do this thing.
Awesome. Well, again, if I go to this idea of CEO whispering, I mean, literally your job, and I'm right now pointing to Vistage Chair and coach because I want to get into how you ended up there as well.
Right.
But if we look at that, your job literally is to lift up CEOs and key executives. And how did you determine that you even wanted to do this? Because we can be kind of our group of Vistages can be a little bit of lions all around. How did you end up there? And tell me even a little bit what you view Vistage as for those listening.
Well, there's a saying, I think it was from a Beatles song, that life is what happens when you're making other plans. And that's happened to me through my whole journey, right? I didn't even know what Vistage was until someone, a colleague, a community, somebody I know in the community, came to me one day and said, "Hey, would you want to do this?" And I'm like, I don't even know what this is. And yet, as you look back, all of the steps along the way was pretty much preparing me for it. I just didn't know it. And so sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And when the door presents itself, are you going to walk through?
Well, I love that. I have a quote calendar in my office. And actually the quote yesterday was, "One day you'll look back and you'll realize that it all happened in this way for a reason. And yeah. I think that's super, super interesting.
Right.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me, so when did you become a Vistage Chair? And I know, when did you start the group or the groups that you were looking after?
Well, it was quite the journey. I was first approached back in, I think it was 2000 and maybe 8 or 9. And at the time I had just launched my consulting practice. And the requirement to get started was you had to be able to really focus to build a brand new group, because it was the hardest thing I ever did in my career, is to build that first CEO group. And so what happened is I had just sent out hundreds and hundreds of letters to everybody in the community that I knew that said, "I'm starting this new business." And then I was introduced to Vistage, and they said, "Well, you can't do anything for 6 to 9 months while you start this." And I said, "Well, then this isn't right, because my professional credibility is on the line now," and I turned them down. They came back a few years later. And at that point in time, it was much easier, because I had the business running for several years, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to focus on this. And if anyone asks me to do any work, I can say, no, I'm fully got capacity. I don't have capacity to help. And that's actually what I did. And so in 2010 is when I went out for training, and I went through there's a whole interview and approval process that they use. And then I had to go to California for a week of training. And then there was a whole process of trying to launch the first group.
Oh, wow.
And I had my first, back then they used to do events, and you would invite people to a 90-minute session, one in the morning, one at lunch. And we had somebody do a little 20-minute talk on a topic, give the speaker type of idea. We explained what it was, and then we had everybody identify what's an important issue that they're working on, and then we processed an issue. And then from there, you tried to set appointments to sign people up.
Well, and that's a great example of what Vistage is, right? The framework of the meetings, meeting once a month, all day, going through and having a really curated speakers who always are bringing the most interesting content, and then following it up with either, I think sometimes we would have business reviews where different, in my group, the CEO group, would tell about what's going on and issues that they were working on, what's the status of their business or where they're headed, where they're going. And then there was another section of it where we were processing each other's issues as well. And so I guess they call that a peer networking or peer learning kind of idea.
Correct. And that really does embody the bulk of the meeting day for the Vistage experience.
Did you know you always wanted to do coaching? I mean, in your consulting, were you doing coaching, or how did you end up being a coach?
I really wasn't. And this is the thing where the quote that you mentioned, where when you look back, it all happened for a reason. I was in banking for 25 years, and during the bulk of my banking career, which was at Sovereign Bank back in the day, Jay Sidhu, who was the president and CEO there, was really big on leadership. We went through so many leadership classes and programs, and it was a lot. And at the time, I'm thinking, well, I wanted to go to the banking school, and I wanted to do all this stuff in the industry. And he was like, no, we're doing leadership. And, at the time, I fought it a little bit. And in hindsight, it prepared me. It was the best thing in my preparation.
Well, you're an amazing coach. I mean, when I say the comments about having made a difference in my life and in those around us, I know that that's so true. And I think for those listening, if you have access to coaching, executive coaching, I mean, it's such an amplifier. And something else I'd love you to talk about is in that group coaching, we're learning from each other. So I feel like there's the individual coaching that's one-on-one where you're helping us. But then also that group experience. Is there anything you want to comment on how we kind of again, I always like to call us, sometimes we would get wild with you, right? We'll go way off topic. You got a bunch of, kind of type A personalities, people who have strong opinions, whatever, and we're off on subjects and you're trying to wrangle us back to, stay on task. And
it's
your
hurting
ability,
kittens.
It's hurting kittens.
It's hurting kittens.
Okay. I like being a kitten. What do you think helps make that so impactful that we do learn so much? What is about that group experience you think that creates that ripple effect with each other?
Well, I really do believe that the power of peers is very, really, very strong. Everybody is dealing with similar things. And what's interesting is in our business model at Vistage, you can't have competing industries in the room, which is different than some industries. Like the auto industry is known for their 20 group things where it's all car dealers from different geographies. So our model is same geography, different industries. And I do think there's a lot of benefit to that because, first of all, everybody's dealing with people. Everybody's dealing with selling something to someone, right? Yeah. And whether you're manufacturing it, whether it's a service, there's lots of similarities in all of that. And I think being able to hear everybody else's experiences, it's just very powerful.
I agree. There's almost a storytelling aspect. I can hear someone tell the story of what they're experiencing and how they're working their way through it. Sometimes watch them work their way through it with your amazing questions and help, or all of us asking questions. And then we kind of get to do that mental model where we can run that scenario through our mind and in the future when we come across it, or if we're dealing with the same thing, which I felt so many times that was true. Now we've got more learning on how to possibly deal with that.
Right. So many times people have said after a meeting that, let's say you processed something. You talked about a situation you were dealing with. Other people will say, you know what? I could totally relate to that. I have similar things going on in my business. And, we like to think we're all different, but we're more alike than we are different.
Agreed. It's like a little, I think it's another Beatles song, Have a Little Help from My Friends.
There you go.
I'm not the best with lyrics, but right? I feel like that's totally, and I think the confidentiality in that space, the ability to speak openly, and sometimes just saying things out loud and committing it to, the world, the universe is powerful also.
Right. And I find that a lot in the one-to-one coaching sessions is that when you ask questions, just the ability for somebody to have to say it out loud when before it was just in their heads. There's just a shift.
Right.
When that happens, when you have to say it out loud, it crystallizes a little bit better. You just take a really big leap as far as how the thought comes together.
Agreed. Well, so on that similar thread, and you can use me as an example since I guess maybe there's two questions here. One is there some moment where you shifted my thinking? Because I know you've done it countless times, and I probably, if to look back and know how many versions ago, from us even just meeting back in the day to where I am today, is there anything that stands out in your mind or anything about that journey of me and you meeting that sticks out?
I can't say there's like one specific thing. Your journey, though, has been it's been a thrill to be able to sit on the sidelines as that has happened, because when I think back to when we first met, which was even before Vistage, it was through the chamber, and where you have come to and how you have evolved to be a very powerful, very empathetic, very driven leader has just been a thrill to watch.
Well, thanks, Jess. Thank you for inviting me into Vistage. I think I was so, I could see that I needed it and I knew, but I don't think I knew exactly what I was getting into, meaning I didn't know quite how powerful it would be, more than exceeded my expectations.
Right.
So.
And you're not the only one who has said that as well, that people, because you don't realize it until you experience it, what it really is.
And I think for those out there listening, something for them to think about is, Vistage is one way to get peer coaching or to get one-on-one coaching, but there's so many options out there for individualized coaching, to coaching for, speech coaching I've done, to peer groups. But I think it's something to lean into whatever opportunities are in front of you or wherever resources you have access to. I think it's probably a game changer for leveling up, I would think.
Right. Absolutely. It's really valuable if people are open to it and are willing to learn and question themselves and, try to move forward.
I love that. That kind of gives me some other things. Another thing I really wanted to kind of tap into you, because, so you've been doing this for so long. Mm-hmm. So, and I know you've obviously coached me, you've coached countless others. And I like to think that in leadership, we all have our own recipe that we're doing, like our own combination of things. But is there like some common, traits or patterns, maybe the blind spots that we have to work through that just kind of stick out?
I think the biggest common blind spot, perhaps, that I see is the hesitancy of making a decision and moving on it when you absolutely know somebody's not in the right seat.
The toughest. That is one of the toughest.
That's tough, because you're dealing with people's lives, and I understand that's really hard. And I'm not saying that when you think somebody's not a fit that you should just lop them off, right? But to take action, to have the hard conversations you need to have, to set the hard expectations that need to be set, and then if they're not met, to make that hard decision, to release them to the market and let the market enjoy their abilities. And you know what? Every single time when somebody's hesitated and they don't know, and should they do it, and it goes on, and they finally do it, everyone around them in the organization says, "What took you so long?" Because everybody can see it.
Yeah, I certainly have had moments like that myself, and you've guided me through them. And it's just a part of being a leader, and something that we have to make sure we lean into and do. So
right. And it's important to take that seriously. I'm not saying to do it without thought, but
well, sometimes I feel like you can be in denial that you're not seeing all the signs, right? Like it's not even, maybe in your inside that it's the right choice, but the signs are you haven't quite, your brain hasn't caught up with your intuition or something. Does that make sense?
Right.
Something like that that is happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And here's one example that somebody had somebody on their team that they knew was a problem. Gave them a warning. Gave them another warning. Gave them this is your last, right? And then it happened again. And the conversation was, well, I've put together this document of what they have to do. And I said, no, wait a minute. What happened to the 1, 2, 3? said, no,
Right.
no, this is not going to happen here. It's time to make a decision. And again, once the decision was made, what they found out, they were so much better in the long run.
Yeah.
Because things weren't being done. Such huge opportunities were overlooked and ignored. And so they were able to circle back and recapture some of those opportunities.
Well, I think for the people around those types of situations, you have to remember not only the situation you're dealing with, but the message you're sending to the
Yes.
others who are stepping up, who are holding themselves accountable, who are doing the work.
Right.
It's, really.
It's demotivating to your high performers
Yeah.
if you keep a low performer, especially in an important role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Is there any other, comments? Like, so you're kind of a mirror in that situation, right?
Yes.
And you are mirroring to people, reflection of how they're, sometimes even actions that they're taking maybe that aren't great. But is there something in there that where you've had to reflect a truth back to somebody who maybe wasn't ready to hear it, or maybe how do you get someone to the point where they are ready to hear that from a coaching perspective? I don't know. How do you deal with it?
It's all around the questions you ask.
Interesting.
Once you know that there's something going on, it's a matter of asking them questions. And a lot of times, not always, a lot of times they will get there if they answer the questions. And if not, you might need to be a little more pointed in the question as far as how aware are you of people's fear to bring up something that's not what you said.
Interesting.
And then there's usually a big silence because, no, I didn't say people don't do it. How aware are you of this? And they're either a little aware, not aware at all, or very aware. And then the key to that is, like I said, you be silent, because let the silence do the heavy lifting. Because we like to fill every moment with words. We are, as a species, very uncomfortable with the silence.
Yeah, I feel like silence can be a superpower.
It's a superpower.
I feel like you have taught me that when I'm working with my leadership team, because we're leaders, and then we also have to put a coaching hat on at some point in time. And I don't view myself as good a coach as you are. I feel like I'm learning, and I'm always trying to get there. But we have to be able to put that coaching hat on and know how to sometimes be silent, or let the group get to the answer, even though we might know the answer.
Correct.
And that's part of the process.
Correct. That's absolutely true.
Took me a while.
That's absolutely true.
Took me a while to learn that one.
Because one of the things that a lot of leaders do, a lot of leaders think, is they have to have every answer. And they don't. In actuality, they have to have the good questions. They don't have to have the answers. And yet, but that's what we thought as we all evolved in our careers, right?
But to go from the tactical and the doing to the leading and guiding,
and the knowing, right?
Yeah.
We've just not executed that as a society very well.
Yes, so true. And giving people the pleasure of solving the problems.
Yes.
Right. And then on the way, they catch up to where your vision is, and they can see the picture, and
it helps lift them.
Yes, it does help. Love that. Well done, Joni. On that, is there, if we continue this conversation a little bit to, what are some important skills, mindsets, traits of a leader? I mean, we just talked a little bit about maybe silence, knowing how to I don't know if we want to call it coaching, or in those moments, letting people have the ability to solve the problems. I don't know, maybe there's a word for that you have, or are there other a couple other key traits that you think are really, really important for leaders and for, honestly, the continuing growth? I mean, I always talk about you have to be a gardener, and the cycles, and that we're never really done as leaders. We're never really done, honestly, as humans. We are continuously learning.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I believe the very first skill is to be able to ask good questions. Not yes, no questions. They should be banned from every leader's vocabulary. No, yes, no, closed-ended questions. They have to be open-ended questions. And that's what gets others thinking, pulls them along. That's clearly, I think, the number one. Having empathy, being able to make a good decision, when the time is right, right? It's knowing when. It's the ability to provide clarity so everyone knows what's the vision, where are we going, because they can't rally behind something they don't know or understand.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Love that. If we go back to this idea of lifting, is there something in those skill sets or the evolution of, or something that, or maybe a way that you can kind of identify the difference between someone who's just leading well versus someone who is lifting others?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's easy. You can lead well because a good leader will set the goal and complete the output, right? Whatever the output might be, because that's part of what leading is accomplishing goals and completing and executing on the goals and tactics. A great leader, though, will lift others in the process of doing that. I mean, I could be a good leader and with almost a dictatorial approach, get the output. But what is the wake I have left behind? Who have I barreled over instead of who have I included? Who have I lifted up? Because you get more from people who feel a part of it. You know, people want to make a difference. They want to help. Let them help.
Well, and that's sort of the old, I don't know if it's the right word. You can correct me. I think it's authoritative type of leadership that used to be so in fashion back in the day. Right. And then I feel like there's been a cataclysmic shift to the empowering of employees and to realizing, I don't know if happiness, and it's not just happiness. It's like the empowering, having them be a part of it.
Correct.
Having them identify with it, because we're not always happy in our jobs or work. But I think putting people into that space and wanting their well-being, their sense of accomplishment, those pieces is the way to really can be a competitive advantage. I know that's what I'm always striving to do with us.
I think another important element here is that, you know, years ago, the authoritarian, the just what's the output, has really evolved a lot over the years as well, where now it's more important for a leader to understand how do they show up.
Yeah.
Because how they show up has such great influences. When the leader pulls up into the parking lot in the morning, everybody's watching. What are they getting today? Are they getting somebody grumpy who's going to yell? Are they right? And then everybody adjusts based on that. And so how does a leader show up? And how aware, all the emotional intelligence, how aware is a leader on how they're showing up, how they're influencing others, and then picking up on the social cues.
Yeah, and it can be like physically how you're showing up, right? Like, are you tired, are you frustrated, or the timing? And I always think about that. There's so many, what I do can have these ripple effects, right? But then there's also emotionally, how do you show up? And understanding people can sense frustration, anger, those pieces. And sometimes I think you have to feel the emotion so that you understand, like if I'm frustrated, it's good for me to know that, but I don't necessarily need to project that to the person I'm with because it may not be their fault and it probably might not be good. Does this make sense?
Yes,
some sort of emotional regulation and part of that is staying, I always say you help us stay calm in chaos, is really literally just being able to stay calm and
slow
not
down.
Panicking. Slow down.
Oh,
yeah. Well, that's something I always have an issue with.
I know. It's a struggle for me too sometimes, but slowing down is important sometimes because people care with your energy and I have been
you do.
The same thing, right? I am just a ball of fire sometimes that most people aren't like us. Mm-hmm. And it can be very overwhelming for them to try to keep up.
Yeah.
Because, and so you need to slow yourself down or else you're going to lose them. You're absolutely going to lose them.
Yes. Well said. I completely agree with you. And it's such good advice for sure. And kind of on that similar thread of energy, you do have endless energy.
And so do you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm always curious, like how people fill their cup. Like what, do you ever get sort of, what your version of not being energized? And then if you do, like how do you fill your cup up? Or do you know their practices, or is it just what you're doing and filling your cup with? And now as you have a little more time
Yes.
to do those things, like what are you doing? Like what's Inner Joni doing?
Well, I often am very energetic, and it's not often that not.
Yes.
Now, do I get physically tired? Sure, I get physically tired, but usually that's toward the end of the day if I've had a really busy day, and then it's time to go to bed, right? Things that I do, especially now, which are just so much fun for me right now, is I'm teaching myself the guitar.
Wow.
My poor little fingers are very, very sore. I have to be careful that I don't start to get blisters because I enjoy that so much.
Fantastic.
I'm using an app. It's great. I'm building the strength in my hand. I'm learning the chords. I'm learning to play songs. I mean, it's just so much fun. So that gives me lots of energy. And I'm relearning Spanish. I took it in high school. I really think that would be a really valuable skill to have, to be more bilingual, to be able to converse a little bit. I know words. I can count, all the basics. But I'm 15, 20 minutes a day, every day.
So you're let's see, if we go to the guitar, you're doing something truly that is fun. You're
Yes.
taking a break from whatever else
Yes.
you're doing, and you're doing something that is
fun.
truly fun. And I even, you're somewhat in a moving towards a retirement. I'm not sure if you're quite in retirement, I would argue.
Not 100%,
Yes,
no.
I would.
But we're moving closer.
You're moving to that. So you have, per se, more time for it.
Yes.
But I think even those of us that are still, in it working now, you got to make time to have the
do.
fun. I think that's where the recharge happens. I know that doing something truly for the joy of it, right? Is powerful.
Exactly. And you know what? What's really fascinating is with this app that I'm using to teach myself guitar, they do say, really, 10 to 15 minutes a day when you start out, because otherwise you're going to tear your fingers apart.
Interesting.
And I've actually enjoyed it so much. I've been doing more like 30 minutes. Okay, overachiever, right? Okay. And I said to myself, like, oh, I have to back off or I'm going to get blisters all over. And so, but it's so much fun.
Love that.
And everybody, no matter how busy you are, actually, if you think through your life, can you find 15 minutes a day to do something that really fills your cup? I think you can.
Well, it's up to us. We own those hours in our day or week, and we just
exactly
have to
right.
make it a priority, right? It's our responsibility.
Right.
It falls on our shoulders to do so.
Right.
Back to the language piece a little, just to kind of go more towards things you do in your personal, like learning the guitar. So you're learning to do Spanish. You are a world. I took it in high school.
So did I.
I feel like if I try to say something right now besides like gracias, I might make a big faux pas. But you are a world traveler. You like to go on these epic trips of cultural, I feel like, immersion.
Yes.
And I've heard so many of them. There's that quote, not all who wander are lost.
Right.
And I feel like that's something that relates to you. What does your wandering around the world do? Like, what is that, is it cup filling? Is it learning experience? Like, tell me more about why that is just something you love so much.
Well, first of all, we've been to 54 countries.
Wow. That's awesome.
And we're going to another one this year. It is, and the types of trips we take on these bigger, more extensive, off the beaten path kind of places, they're just the cultural, the learning, the being able to meet people in other parts of the world is really, really so much fun. And we travel with a group. There's 16 of us, all friends, most of them local here, and we travel so well together. Easy to mix and match. People can go off, and you don't have to worry about what your spouse or significant other wants to do. You just go do what you want because you know everybody, and you can just
created a great dynamic.
And it's fun. I mean, these trips, they divide us up at least once, if not twice, during the trip, and they drop you off at somebody's house, and you have dinner with them.
How interesting! I love that. And so, you're filling your cup with learning. You're seeing different places. I feel like you have always, even as a coach teaching us, you're always a continuous learner and looking for ways to just continue to learn, grow. You're the epitome of what I would call curious.
Exactly. I listen to lots of podcasts. So I just.
So you're saying you're going to subscribe?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Of course.
Okay, good. So lifting right now, like back to the idea of lifting. So Is there something right now that you are doing? Something, a book, a habit? Well, I guess maybe it's the guitar.
Yeah.
Is that, so that's kind of what's
I would
lifting
say
you
that's
right
lifting
now.
me right now, right? Is the guitar and the Spanish. And I'm also taking some golf lessons.
Oh, good. Yay.
Yes,
We'll have to
yes.
go out together.
So
Get some balls.
it's, I've played golf for quite a while, but some people I know got me a gift certificate for a golf lessons and a fitting for new golf clubs.
Fantastic.
And I'm in the process of that, and I've had my first lesson, and he was a great professional golf pro, and I've enjoyed my first lesson. And every day I practice for 15 minutes. I practice the drill that he has me practicing until I go back for the second lesson. And
Great.
I've already, even after not even a week, noticed a difference.
Oh, I need to channel some of that into
So.
my. I love that. Yeah, that's.
So it's those types of things. It's just, and then of course I swim in the summertime. I swim. So
Awesome. If you're gonna to kind of pull it and wrap it all together, I'm going to ask you, what does it mean to lift in your eyes?
what it means is that you continue to improve yourself and improve those around you. And that's, to me, the epitome of lifting, right? Not only yourself, but your community, your friends, your clients if you have clients, your customers if you have customers, right? Anybody who touches you. A long, long time ago, I went through this one of the programs at Sovereign Bank, and we had to identify some things, answer some key questions, and the one question was, what do you want your life to be about? And when I look back on that, it's that people who have met me were glad that they did, because I made a difference. And that was a long, long, long time ago.
Well, okay, now I'm gonna put these.
Oh, my.
Okay, award. So I brought some of the awards I've gotten over the years. Okay, and I'm gonna put them here, and I'm gonna push them towards you. Okay, Joni, because all of the awards that I have gotten, some of these are from Vistage.
Yes.
The Athena Award in the area which you nominated me for.
Yeah.
These may have my name on them, but they are your awards. And I know that there's a collection here with me, and I know there's a collection with all of the other leaders and just, executives, other people that you have met and influenced and coached and all of those things. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's easy to celebrate good people. Mm-hmm. And, like I said, to see the accomplishments not only of you, but some of the other members in the group and what they've been able to do is just so thrilling. And,
It's a team
to be
effort.
able to have some little connection to that is wonderful.
Agreed. Well, Joni, thank you. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for your wisdom, all of the questions, for your unwavering support of myself and all of those other individuals that we've talked about. You really do lift like hearts and minds. And as one of those that you have touched, I am honored to play your ripple effect forward. So,
And I am honored to have been able to help in whatever little way I have. So thank you very much for inviting me here today and for letting me be a part of your life.
what a wonderful conversation with my favorite Vistage Chair. Check the show notes for more information on Joni and how to become a Vistage member. Remember to subscribe to this podcast and always lift.